What's up, nerds? Welcome back. Welcome back to the ongoing hellscape that is Superman, Son of Kal-El, number 4. So, yes, we are continuing to talk about one of the most discussed superhero comics at the moment. And it's not even the most discussed for any good reason. You know what I mean? Like, My Hero Academia is talked about for good reasons. This shit is not. And, I think the ironic part is that the creators, well, except for one of them, Gabe El Taib, shout out to you, Gabe. As we can see here in the colors, they have Gabe and Hi-Fi noted as the colorists because moving forward, they're going to be having Hi-Fi recolor Gabe's work apparently. Ever since, they basically said, yeah, we don't need your work anymore since you have a problem with us. So let's just kind of get into what we actually do have here. Because, yeah, I watched your boy Zach's video about this issue as well, and he kind of had a lot of the same points that I kind of have, but there are a few other things that I kind of want to expand upon as well. So, for one thing, we have this whole bullshit where they're all sitting down to talk, and John Kent is having his internal monologue saying, like, yeah, we're all pretending that we're okay right now. And one would think it's because, oh, well, yeah, you've never been with a dude before, and all of a sudden you're bringing this soon to be your boyfriend into this whole situation, having this done. No, it's because Superman, Clark Kent, his dad, literally just left the planet to leave for good, seemingly. We'll see how long that actually lasts. But anyway, I noticed one thing on here that I hadn't really noticed before, or I guess I hadn't really thought about it. I don't know how well you can see it from this image right here of Jay, his jacket, how it has these two arrows, one pointing up and one pointing down. And I was looking at that and I was like, huh. Because I was wondering, I was like, I would assume Jay would be the bottom in the relationship, but based off of his hoodie, I guess he's verse. He's neither top nor bottom. He'll do whatever, whichever way the wind blows, whatever his mood is that day. If he feels like, catching or pitching, that's what'll end up happening. So, just a random thought I had when I looked at it, I was like, why does his jacket have just two green arrows on it? But anyway, so they sit down and they start talking and shit, and then they have this whole bullshit where there's this problem that like breaks out, and I'm assuming that of course because Superboy, Superman, whatever the hell they want to call him, I guess because he's able to move really fast, he sees all of this stuff happening, but he sees it like in slow-mo, you know what I mean? That's the only explanation I can think of for why Jay is sitting here with this like stupid look on his face as things are falling into him. Because he tries to grab him, and that's when he realizes, like, oh, he can make himself intangible. So I don't really need to worry about him. He's going to be fine. Because apparently he just does it all the time. But he doesn't do it with everything, because I would imagine if he makes himself entirely intangible, he would just fall through the earth, because he doesn't also have the ability to fly. If he had that ability, then it would make sense that he's just always completely intangible, but still seemingly walking around. It's like, no, apparently at least like his feet and his ass, I'm assuming, are not intangible right now because he's sitting on the chair. So that's the only way I could think of him not being able, or him just not falling through the shit, you know what I mean? Unless he also has the ability to fly, which I don't think he does. So anyway, we get all these different shots of like debris and shit falling through his face as John Kent realizes like, oh, he's a post-human and all that crap. So he flies his grandparents out to safety and shit, and they're like, yo, what happened? What's going on? So he checks them, asks them if they're hurt, and then he checks them for any like internal injuries and everything. He sees that they're okay, and then they ask him like, okay, well, we're fine. Where is Jay? And he's like, oh, he's back in the house. He's like, I'm sorry, I have to get back and deal with this before they show up, which is the Justice League. And here's this thing where we see this is Hippolyta. Okay, this is Hippolyta. They're going to refer to her as Wonder Woman multiple times in here. This is Hippolyta. I don't recall at any point where she started going by the name of Wonder Woman. And I've been reading, this bitch doing this shit with the Justice League since Infinite Frontier #0. And I've been reading Justice League since she was part of the new lineup. So I don't know why they're calling her Wonder Woman. They never have. But all of a sudden in this, and that's because like in what's going on with Wonder Woman, the actual Wonder Woman comics right now, she just came back. She's back in the world. They had her interacting with her mom, who looked exactly like this. So that's what I'm saying. I know this is Hippolyta. I know this is her mom, because in the Wonder Woman comic, she interacted with her mom in this exact outfit. And in Justice League, she's wearing this exact outfit. But in this issue of this series, they're calling her Wonder Woman, because DC really doesn't give a fuck about their overall continuity anymore. The only thing that matters is, oh, gay Superman. Everything else just goes out the damn window. Anyway, she shows up, talks to Faultline and saying, like, you made a big mistake. Like, this place is under the protection of the Justice League, and then she gets yeeted the hell out of there. So, Flash is showing up, and then John Kent is, like, freaking out, because he's like, oh, shit, if Flash gets there, he's going to be in for a world of hurt. Because if you remember, he doesn't have the same type of invulnerability that Superman or Hippolyta, Wonder Woman, whatever the hell they're calling her, he doesn't have that same type of durability. Like, the Flash will absolutely get splattered by a hit from Faultline. So he immediately starts flying, and he's like, I gotta beat him there. And if, I guess they were trying to do this whole thing, like, paying homage to the, like, Flash Superman races, which is something that has been disputed many times. Basically, to my understanding, the way that it's been distilled down, the way that it's been answered, is that the Flash is faster than Superman on foot. Like, if him and Superman are both running on foot, Flash is faster than him. But if Superman flies, he's faster than the Flash in that way. So that's why, you know, he's able to get there before Flash and, like, just barely stops him, because he was flying. So he stops him and shit, and then Flash is saying, like, where did you come from? And he's just telling him, like, she's not a threat. The girl who just, like, destroyed their entire farmhouse. So he's like, she's not a threat. He says, I'm pretty sure Wonder Woman, like I said, is still being knocked backwards. And we're standing in a crater that used to be a house. He's like, okay, she's not a deliberate threat. So I guess that's a slightly closer to truthful. Anyway, he says she's being used. Let's just calm everything down. Because apparently that's this new, like, Superman's method. They've even written articles about it, about how he does things so much better than his dad ever did, because he's actually willing to talk to the villains first. Like, he doesn't just go in swinging. He talks to them and, like, talks them down. He de-escalates the situation. And it makes for boring-ass stories. So, in a way, you have Faultline sitting there, and she's just kind of like freaking out, and she's saying, yeah, they took me away. So Hippolyta asks her, like, who did? And she says, I don't know, I was blindfolded. Somehow, I wasn't heavy anymore. I was taken to a plane, and I was falling. So that's the only thing she actually remembers. So again, like I said, John Kent is, like, kneeling down. He's like, it's okay, like, don't worry, it wasn't your fault, we're gonna take care of you. Doing all that stupid shit. And then Hippolyta says, you will be looked after now. You will be in my care. So he's like, there you go, Wonder Woman for personal protection. It doesn't get safer than that. So that's where we get, like, some of the others showing up, with also the Kents, who are now standing in the wreckage of their home. And, like, Hal Jordan is kind of saying, like, you know, he's kind of apologizing, saying, like, I'm sorry, I can't, you know, imagine what y'all have lost here. And they're just telling him, like, oh, don't worry, like, we're fine, it's gonna be okay. They give this whole little speech where they're like, we have our lives, the animals are okay, and we moved a lot into storage, photo albums, anything precious, just in case a house can be rebuilt. So Flash is saying, and it will be, we promise. Well, I mean, we've seen in Flash comics before where he's able to, like, build entire, like, multi-level buildings in just a few minutes. So, I mean, you could, if you wanted to, you could probably rebuild their house right now. As y'all are standing there, the Flash could literally be rebuilding the house. But that's not what's happening. So anyway, they just tell them, like, you know, we're going to go ahead and go stay with some neighbors and everything. You should probably get your friend home, they're saying to John. And then that's when Jay comes out and he's like, thanks for having me. And they're like, yeah, don't worry, anytime. Well, anytime we have a house again. So, ha 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 ha. Anyway, Wally comes up to, like, John Kent, is trying to, like, give him the little pep talk of, like, yo, I know how it is. It can be tough when we're trying to live up to, like, the legacy of the person who came before us. Because if you remember, he looks up to Barry and he's like, I know what it's like to step into the boots of your hero. All those little doubts, all the ways you worry about measuring up. Anytime you want to talk, I'm around. So John just says, like, thanks or whatever. He says, also, sometimes it's just nice to talk to someone else who can speak at the speed you can think. So that's where we go back over to Jay talking to John. And he's just kind of saying, like, okay, so I think we should probably talk about, you know, my whole situation. And that's where John just like, you have powers. He's like, right, that was easy to address. Are you okay? So He has to have this whole little like internal battle where he's like, no, I'm not okay because this used to be my fortress. This was my place. This was where I felt safe and all that. And now it's gone. And again, you have the power to be rebuilding it right now if you really wanted to, but that's not what you're doing. Anyway, so he's saying like the second my dad told the world who he was, he told the world who we were too. That meant his enemies became a threat to all of us. So Jay is like, and that goes for anyone you piss off too. So he's like, yeah. So Jay is just telling him, I don't think this was about your father. I don't think it's a coincidence this strike happened after he left here. We've been working on a story at the truth, and I think you just became a big part of it. So he calls up some of his friends saying, like, I need the post-human files. Can you bring them to me? And they're asking, like, yeah, where? He says, the sky above, above Metropolis, 1 hour. So they're like, all right, yeah, we'll see you there. And then John is telling him, like, in the sky, like, what meeting? Or who are we meeting? So Jay just kind of tells them, like, some friends. And this is where we go, and they're called who? Airy and Wink. So they show up flying. And we saw in the last issue where when John Kent was flying with Jay, he was carrying him by his, like, under his, like, armpits. Like, he was just carrying him by the arms. And now he's carrying him like this. So, I mean, they're not even trying to be subtle. Like, they still, we all know they've been confirmed to be bisexual, gay, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But they still haven't done that in here. They still haven't even shown romantic interest between these two. And they're already switching to this shit. You know what I mean? Like, they're not even trying to be subtle about it. They're not trying to do this in a good... And that's what I'm saying. Like, even if you like this fucking change, they're still not doing it the right way. Like, they still haven't shown anything that indicates to us they're anything other than friends, which is a problem. Because people who are actually attracted to each other, even if they're teenagers, like, they're still going to at some point be like, hey, you know, I kind of like you. They still haven't even done that yet. They still haven't done that shit, and yet they're playing up the romance already. Anyway, so they start kind of just like trading information. I don't know, I'm assuming Airy is the one with wings and Wink is the girl with the little pixie cut. So I think she's the one saying, like, I have to say it's nice to see someone else being carried through the air for a change. Makes the whole thing less awkward. So Jay is saying Faultline's not the first superhuman to show up confused and out of control. Jay mentions like that dude who was on fire in the forest, who he like talked down again, like he was able to like calm him down by talking very softly. Anyway, he says, and there have been more. Henry Bendix lied and bribed and cheated to be the president of a country, my country, that we know. So Ares back there saying, since then we believe Gamora has been creating post-humans, experimenting on unwilling people. And Wink says all on private islands where international law gets hazy. So they're like, all three of us went through this. Apparently they're all from Gamora, which is what Jay was like telling John and Martha Kent at the beginning. He was like saying like, yeah, I'm originally from Gamora and all this shit. So apparently that's how he got his powers. So they're saying like, then a Superman-sized spotlight was shown on a very bad regime with very good PR. So he's saying like, you think Bendix attacked my family because I saved Gamoran refugees? And they're like, and you stood up for them and you got arrested for them. I can't prove it and I don't want you to rush into anything, but I think it's possible. So they just kind of give him like all of the information, all of the research they've done so far, and he just like very quickly reads through all of it. So like Wink is looking at him like, that was fast. Do you maybe want to read it a second time just to make sure you have it? But he asks like, is it okay if I keep this or whatever the hell? So Jay's like, yeah, that's fine. I trust you. So he takes off, and then they ask Jay, is he joining the truth? And Jay says, I certainly have a plan for that. So this bitch is already scheming, which is never a good sign. Anyway, of course, John takes all of this information back to his mom. So Lois looks all of it over. She's like, yeah, they did a lot of research. There's a lot of good information here, but there's nothing that's actually a smoking gun. So he says, I've seen enough. She's like, to do what? He says, Bendix attacked my grandparents. If I was a half a second slower, they'd be dead, Mom. If Dad were here, and she's like, he's not here. So she says, John, this isn't a costume villain. He's a president. This isn't someone you can confront. So he says, I bet that's exactly what he believes. And if he believes he'll never be held accountable for anything, he'll just go on hurting people. Do you honestly think I can stand by and let that happen? She's like, no, I know you far too well for that. But John, take a breath, go in with a level head, and, try not to cause an international incident. He's like, I won't do anything stupid. And then he immediately proceeds to do something stupid, which is just show up on the dude's front doorstep and shit. So he comes over to him, and Bendix is standing there saying, like, incredible. My people told me they were tracking you here, but I honestly couldn't imagine you'd be so idiotic. Well, you haven't met him yet. Anyway, so he comes in and is asking him, like, did you order an attack on my grandparents or whatever? He's like, child, you can't invade a country and threaten a head of state. I mean, he just says, I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just asking a question. Did you attack my grandparents? So he just like gives him this very sly smile. He's like, I would never harm an innocent family. And then he says, Gomorrah is a peaceful nation. I'm afraid your idealism has been preyed upon. You've been lied to and used. The so-called refugees you rescued fled our justice system with their families. They were criminals. And he's just like, they weren't criminals. I can see your heartbeat. I can hear your pulse. I know you're lying. You hide it well, though. Lying must come pretty easy to you, like second nature, I guess. I have the answers I was after. Thank you, Mr. President. And that's when he immediately says, like, he gets on his comms or whatever and is like, do it. So as he's flying away, he all of a sudden hears like screaming, and he goes to like see who it is, and it's that guy from before that we saw in, I think, what was it, the first issue, the dude who was on fire in the forest. So he comes across him and he's thinking, okay, I just got to do the same thing again. I just got to try and talk him down, get him to calm down. So he walks in, and in his internal monologue, he's noticing like the heat is so much worse than the last time I was here. Like he doesn't think he can stand it. And then we can see also where there are these like just different lasers or whatever the hell that are directed at him, and then he can't really stand it anymore, so he just says like, I gotta get away from it. And then he uses his x-ray vision to like look at himself, and he's like, this had some sort of effect on me. It's like changing me, and it also feels like it's supercharging me and shit. So because of that, he starts to realize like he's losing control of his powers. He says, I can hear so much. I can hear all of them all over the world. I can't block it out. Everyone who needs me. And that's where we see like all of these loud voices and shit that are just kind of like yelling in his mind. So that's where we leave off on that for right now, because apparently that's the whole thing that's going to be going on with him. He got supercharged, and now he can't really control his powers for the moment. So I don't know. We'll see. Like there's so much fucking wrong with this whole story, like this whole thing with Jay. Like I said, they're not even approaching it the right way for it to be like a believable romance. It literally just feels like, well, they're getting together because the plot says they need to, and because we already have like headlines and articles out there talking about how they're going to get together. So we're just going to go ahead. I'm getting the feeling that was kind of the plan all along. Get the media to make a splash about it. That way we don't really have to tell the story of them getting together. We can just force them to be together. And everybody will have already accepted it because they already heard that it was a thing. So they're just going to accept it because they know it's a thing. So that seems to be where they're going with this whole Jay thing. Although, like I said, she's a scheming hoe. She already has plans over there talking about, oh yeah, I have plans about, him joining the truth. I'm like, you conniving little queen. So I don't know. And then this whole thing with like Henry Bendix is like, yeah, you're creating an international incident. I mentioned on my Twitter one time that like one issue of what was it? Was it Action Comics? I think it was Action Comics, where Superman went. I think it was during a time when there were actual like protests in Iran, because I'm pretty sure like some of the pictures they used are actual photographs of like large protest groups, and he just goes over there and he just stands there. He doesn't go and confront the leader of the country. He doesn't go and fight with the army. He just goes and stands with the protesters. And then, we see where he goes through like different days where he's talking about like, yeah, sometimes they praise me. They brought me flowers. Other times they throw Molotov cocktails at me. But I did nothing. I didn't say anything. I just stood there. I just stood there, and then I left. This one is over here like leading protests and shit and showing up to the front doorstep of like foreign leaders to try and ask them questions, very stupid shit. So I don't know. I don't really have any high hopes from this at all, especially considering that they, once Gabe came out and like voiced his opinions on the company, they decided, yeah, we don't want you around. And it's fun to see so many people say like, well, that's what you get. Like, you can't just be talking bad about your boss, because that's what's going to happen. Like, you can't be disparaging the company you work for, because obviously they're going to let you go. And it's like, all right, yeah, if y'all want to go ahead and, like, it's so funny. Those are the same people who probably are, yelling about how like employers don't treat their employees right, and they should have so much more respect for them and shouldn't be so controlling. But then it's like Gabe comes out and like voices his opinion. They're like, oh well, obviously he should have been fired. Like, you can't just talk about your business like that. Like, all right, if that's the way y'all want to play it, I hope y'all have that same energy when you're at work. But yeah, those are probably all of the thoughts that I have for this. So I'm not going to ask if anybody out there has read this. If you have any thoughts on it, which I'm sure many of you do feel free to share those with me down in the comments. I look forward to seeing what y'all have to say about this. But yeah, that's going to do it for me on this review. So if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like the video. Make sure you are subscribed. Share out the video if you would like. I do appreciate it, even though it's about stuff like this. But yeah, if you're done here, then go and read a book. Definitely not that one. But if you're not, then I will see you on my next video.